What's up, gangos? Today I want to talk about the idea of like persuasion and in sales. And so as of recent, I've been more and more into like psychology. So I just want to like talk about it. I'm not teaching. I just want to talk about what I'm understanding and learning, and what's been proven in science and like over the course of this whole time. Like these theories came from 1920, 1930s, and is based off like consumerism, capitalism, all of that, right? And even when you watch, like when I watch videos of like how to increase your sales and like get better sales skills, these things are mentioned in just a different format per se, but this is what it all ties back to, and this is why I'm so interested in it. And so what as of I've been looking more and more into Sigmund Freud, very famous psychologist, and then he had a nephew, I'm pretty sure it's his nephew, his name was Edward Bernays, right? And this guy is very famous for a lot of the campaigns that he made back in the day, where big companies would hire him because he was like a psychoanalyst, and he would implement campaigns in order to drive up revenue for certain companies. So like one of the big famous ones he did was he made it he normalized the idea of women smoking cigarettes, because he said that it was a torch of freedom, and he put this in a whole campaign. And he engineered this whole thing where there was like this big festival or whatever, and he had women smoking, and he had all these like news people take pictures, and they went like mainstream, and then it drove up the revenue for all these cigarette companies, and like the sale of cigarettes. Even though it was harming these women, he was able to engineer it in a way where it was driving up revenue for these cigarette companies, and the cigarette companies are the ones who hired him to do this. And he did this for a multitude of companies. He became rich off of it. And he talked about the idea that people will obviously have necessities that they need, and they'll buy those things, right? But in theory, the only thing we really need is like shelter, food, and water. Anything beyond that, we technically don't need. And so he used this against humans. And a lot of people think he's evil. You can say he's evil or whatever, but I think he was genius, right? You gotta give credit where credit's due. Some of these people are just, if they know how to hack the human brain and they can get rich off of it, or whatever their incentive is, it's like you gotta give credit where credit's due, right? And he was able to do it back in the day, right? He used his uncle Sigmund Freud's theories on psychoanalysis and stuff like that, and he implemented them into capitalism and consumerism, right? And so one of his big ideas was people aren't able to control their desires. And so if you are able to tie the product that you're selling to their desires and their emotions, you can sell in huge amounts, and you can sell literally anything. And this is what he did for so many of these companies. One of the other big famous ones that he did was it was for like all breakfast companies were struggling because people stopped eating breakfast as much or something, and it was like for like eggs and bacon or something of that nature, right? And he's the one who started the campaign of breakfast is the most important meal of the day. That statement is not scientifically backed. There was no proven statement, none of it, right? But he was able to I think what he did was like nothing. From what I remember, essentially, like he made this campaign, and he had like lobbyists, which is like doctors and like scientists, back it, which is like lobbyists who are like they'll be like, yeah, this is true, this and that, whatever. They support it even though it's false. And then it got all these people to believe it because they see people with credibility supporting it, and they drove up all the sales for like cereal and eggs, bacon, all this, right? And it's because the eggs and bacon companies would hire Edward Bernays to do this, and he accomplished. And he did it with a multitude of things, like I mentioned. You could look more into him. I think he's a genius, because it's just crazy to me that he was able to do all of this back in the day, right? And and when I was watching a documentary of him, and he like his like daughter or something like that was speaking, she said that he would call people stupid. Like he would always be like, yeah, humans are dumb, people are stupid, this and that, because he was so easily able to manipulate them, and like he was able to control the narrative. And like even governments would hire him to control the propaganda that was being spewed out. And all these presidents had close connection to him because they needed his help with controlling the masses, and that's what he was very famously known for. And he was the person who created the idea of public relation, because propaganda had too much of a negative connotation. So like this guy did a whole bunch of shit that was connected to like controlling the masses, and he was able to do it time and time again. And it all goes back to the idea of like consumerism, and he made people believe that consuming was actually good for them, because they were able to satiate their internal desires. And like if you like watch like sales videos, people never actually sell the product. They sell the idea that you'll get when you get the product, right? So it's like, I know like a common thing in like sales is like sell the vacation, which is like, if I'm trying to sell you a car, rather than tell you, oh yeah, this car drives really fast, it has this much horsepower, it's this price because of the color or whatever bullshit that I spit at you, right? It won't really move you because people don't move based off logic, right? Most humans are just not rational. And that's another thing that he talked about, right? Most humans are not rational, they're not logical, they think based off emotion and desire. So, but if I were to tell you, oh yeah, you should really buy this car because imagine how much people, how your neighbors will look at you. Imagine how you'll feel when you roll up to work in this brand new, beautiful car. Think about the status that it'll give you. Think about how attractive it'll make you to the opposite thing, right? People are very tied to their status and things that will make them look better, right? And so because they desire the feeling of looking more attractive, looking more rich, looking more powerful, things of that nature, you can easily connect your product to that end goal. And that's what will actually close the sale rather than you telling them the actual facts about the car, which is what actually should matter to you, right? You should matter how powerful the car is, how the horsepower, the color, the price, whatever, why it all correlates, rather than that actually mattering to humans. Humans are more moved by what will actually satisfy their desire. And I find that so interesting because it's like, in theory, you would be able to control mass amounts of people, or even on a one-to-one basis, like in a sales conversation, just based off knowing what is it that they want rather than what is it that they need. And essentially you can manufacture any product fitting to someone's desires, and you can even, if you're like Edward Bernays and you're able to control the narrative and feed them their desires and then sell it to them, you would make a shit ton of money. Because like what he did, he would like, everybody wants freedom, right? It's a societal want, need, or whatever, right? So when he brought up the idea of smoking cigarettes for women as a sign of freedom, every woman saw it was like, oh my God, I want freedom. I want that for me. And immediately, so he fed them that desire and then he sold them cigarettes. So he manufactured and engineered this whole thing, and he made a shit ton of money for himself, for the cigarette company. Like, think about that. Like, it's such a crazy thing that you're able to feed people a desire and then sell them the product for it. I don't know. If you're really able to understand the psychology behind this, and I don't want to say take advantage of it, but it's like, you have to take advantage of it. If you're like someone selling something, if you want to close more deals, if you want to sell more product, if you want to do whatever it is that you want to do, if you're trying to persuade or have a edge in your psychology against other humans because they're just not logical beings and this information is already out there and known, it's like you're not taking advantage of people, you're taking advantage of the information and knowledge out there. That's how I see it, at least, right? At the end of the day, if you're not selling and persuading people, someone else is. And if they're making the money that you want to make, or they have the power that you want, it's like you gotta kind of do what you gotta do sometimes, I guess. And it's not like you're not taking advantage, you're not doing things without consent. You're informing people, and if you're allowing them to consume the things that they want to consume, and it's up to them to either be like, no, I don't need that, or I don't want that, or their brain gets filled with whatever society tells them. If they're easily influenceable, they're easily malleable, I think that's a individual person problem. And if you're able to capitalize on it, so be it. Someone out there is already, and the information's out there. If they really want to protect themselves, they should have not protect themselves. If they want to make sure that they're not a victim to said persuasion, they should have deep, like, I don't even know what to say. Like, they should have went more into learning their own psychology, I guess, or become more logical, more rational. Nonetheless, if you learn how to use psychology, I genuinely think there's a lot of information there. And if you can do it, you're gonna win. We're all gonna fucking win, I'm telling you.